Serious, what is a conspiracy theory you actually believe in? U/1960-something Batman responded. That Dorothy Kilgallen didn't kill herself and the government was responsible for JFK's assassination. I don't know why the government would do something like that, but the evidence lines up. Reporters don't kill themselves when they're days away from publishing something that would crack the JFK case wide open. Also, witnesses saw FBI agents leaving her house with documents. Plus, the only person she handed her draft to wound up dead 2 days later. The draft, of course, went missing and their investigation into her death was laughable. You see it responded. Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when he was still in office, and his advisors told him to write a letter to the American people to be released later after it got too bad to hide. When his condition went public in 1994, they released the letter and it was almost perfect handwriting, spelling, and grammar. 6 months later he couldn't carry on a conversation. I'm convinced he didn't progress that fast in 1994 and that the entire thing was constructed over the years to look like he was mentally competent while he was president. U/Hat Coffee responded. For the record, serious answer. But, there's this soup place at our local mall that's been there for 3 years now. I've never seen anyone order anything from there, and I rarely see anyone at the register. When our mall was closed due to COVID lockdown quarantine, several locally owned stores shut down, and a few places in the food court. Last time I was there was for my birthday in August, and the soup place is still there. My mom and I have an array of theories about what it could be, ranging from money laundering to a front for drugs, but I cannot believe that place is legitimate. U/Shaker the Bear responded. The conspiracy that created the term conspiracy theory. Think back to the 30s, 40s, 50s. There were stories of the black cars showing up and making people that start finding out too much disappear. Enter the 60s and 70s. Mass media starts growing at a massive rate. A rate at which the government realizes that they cannot ever fully control. Their genius solution is to open the floodgates of crazy. Push a bunch of conspiracy theories into the populace that makes real conspiracy reports be ignored as just tinfoil hat crazy. Label all reports as conspiracy theory. This over time creates a societal misunderstanding in the form of the term conspiracy theory becoming equated with crazy. An example of this is I believe that there really aren't many people that truly believe the earth is flat. There are just some entities planted that push it as a theory. This then becomes one of the main examples of all conspiracy theorists are not to be taken seriously. U/Satan probably responded. This might not be a groundbreaking hot take, but I think that applying for disability status benefits is intentionally made to be a convoluted mess of bureaucratic jargon and endless hoops to jump through solely so that disabled people don't take advantage of them, either because they give up trying to navigate an intentionally confusing system, or because they make a mistake along the way, and the process gets fucked up. I'm really lucky I had my mom helping me with a lot of the paperwork because otherwise I would never be able to get the supports I need in post-secondary. It's like someone purposefully designed the process to be as unobtainable, messy, and overwhelmingly complex for a disabled person as they possibly could. U/mustard__tap responded. Dollar slice pizza places. This may not make sense to people who don't live in New York City. We have these great places that sell a plain slice of pizza, cheese only, for $1. I can't believe they make rent and payroll on volume with $1 per slice and the going rent rates. This has to be some sort of money laundering scam, but one where no one cares because you get a slice of pizza for $1. Might not be the best pizza, but damn, $1 slice. I'll always stop in if I'm passing one on the street. This just can't be economically feasible and something else is going on. U/mysterious_will3680 responded. Certain ultra-wealthy rich have slowly politicized the news over the past decades in the way of brainwashing the population into believing their agenda. Along with possibly having multiple news channels, e.g. left or right-leaning channels, to attract more viewers, so if they don't like one they may go into the other one which they agree more with. Additionally, increasing the entertainment part of the news and decreasing the news and educational parts of the news. U/BuddyBoyBaker responded. The Secret Service is also the group in charge of keeping all retired past government officials quiet. It's crazy to think that all of these powerful people don't spill their knowledge at some point before they die. Once they get a certain clearance, then a detailed profile is built of who their family and friends are and somehow passed to them as a keep your mouth shut or things will happen to these people. Whenever a popular congressman voluntarily retires in the middle of their term, I think that they keep learning shit that they wished they hadn't and that it's time to just get out. U/Cyclopt responded. Mine is strange and has to do with Grindry. But LV been testing an idea, not a scientist, so I could absolutely be convincing myself it's happening, that I think is actually being implemented on their app. In a nutshell, Grindry tracks which guys get clicked on the most, and then an algorithm, assuming they have one that chooses which profiles you see, will cause an ad to pop up every time you click on said profile. Since attractive guys would supposedly get more attention, it would make sense to trigger an ad to pop up when users click on the popular profiles. U/Scrike responded. The Tianjin explosion was a result of China either working on or moving dangerous materials, and while explosion was non-nuclear, materials were radioactive. Radioactive slag was found nearby afterwards, as well as the epicenter of the explosion doesn't match the official reports. Later deleted satellite photos showed the explosion was either on the street or below in the source access tunnels, not within the nearby factory like China suggests. Not a huge conspiracy, just China trying to keep its nuclear energy weapons information hush-hush after a mishap. U/Varsitamisk responded. I'm not a Nazi colonies in Argentina the moon conspiracist, but to me the idea that Hitler didn't die in Berlin not only tracks, but it's common sense Occam's razor to me. First, the only way we know what happened to him is the testimony of those who had the biggest stake in protecting him. There's no photos, no evidence of what happened, all we have is the word of some Nazis. Second, the only physical proof of his death actually proves the opposite. The Soviets claimed to have recovered some of his remains, but when examined after the fall of the Berlin Wall, they were found to be that of a woman. So not only does it not confirm his death, it confirms that there was at least an active and deliberate plan to fake the evidence of his death, which is not the same as faking his death. Lastly, plenty of Nazis escaped through various means, mostly to South America and some to Asia. I'm not saying Hitler did too, but clearly the channels were in place to make it possible, if not probable. I'm not saying that some boys from Brazil type evil plot was hatched, I'm just saying that we're not usually in the business of taking Nazis at their word. U/Manthra77 responded. Flight 93 was actually shot down. Another user replied to this comment to say, so was Flight 800 in 1996. My dad was on a business trip to Boston at the time. The day it happened, he was chatting in the hotel bar with his colleague when that colleague ran into an old friend. He introduced him to my dad and said he was a pilot for United. My dad and the colleague asked the pilot what he thought about Flight 800. The pilot goes, I know what happened, I saw it. It was shot down by one of our military aircraft. I reported it in the air and filed a report on the ground about it. My dad called his friend who worked at CNN at the time, told him what he heard and the pilot's name, and his friend sent over someone to interview the pilot at his house. Guy wouldn't open the door, said he was told not to talk to anyone. After the 9th of November happened, we realized that 800 was probably hijacked, which would explain why it was shot down. A few innocent people had to die to save thousands. U/Champchains responded. There's a group of literary scholars from England who believe that the writings of William Shakespeare were actually written by Christopher Marlowe and the plays were performed under the name of Shakespeare. Marlowe was at the peak of his career and had gotten into trouble with the authorities, and the official story is that he was stabbed in the head outside of a tavern and buried in a coffin with another man. It was like he just died and vanished overnight. William Shakespeare at the time, who was friends with Marlowe, was very unsuccessful and as far as I recall wasn't writing or really doing much of anything. The only surviving writing of Shakespeare is a single copy of his signature. That's the only proof that he even knew how to write or read. As soon as Marlowe was dead, Shakespeare blew up. All of a sudden he had a steady stream of plays involving themes like being exiled and faraway locations like Italy. Shakespeare wasn't a traveled person at all, though Marlowe was known to have visited Italy and other European countries. Many of the stories Shakespeare is credited with involve themes which Marlowe would have been living through once he faked his death and fled his homeland. There's also another theory that the stories were written by a nobleman who had Shakespeare take credit so that the crown wouldn't frown on the fact that his plays sometimes poked fun at the ruling class and likely strip him of his status. Either way, I think it's interesting and likely that one of these two is true. U/Rusty Seberg responded. That the universe is a simulation. Maybe I don't totally believe in it, but it is definitely one that I find easy enough to buy into. If I recall, one of the things that would supposedly prove that the universe is a simulation is if we somehow found the final digit of pi. Edit. Okay, I expected this post to get lost in the stream, but it took off way more than I expected. I just want to clarify some things. I am not a mathematician, nor am I a physicist, nor am I a computer scientist or programmer. This is just a theory that I heard somewhere and thought it was cool. So I am probably getting things wrong when I'm trying to have fun and make an explanation for this theory. I am acting as a middleman for information that I heard elsewhere. If you really want to look more into this theory, I recommend getting the information from the source. I just think that this theory is a fun one to entertain every so often. U/Vizth responded. Republicans are intentionally gutting public health and education, while pushing a hardcore Christian ideology, in an attempt to keep their voter base too stupid and scared to realize the bullshit they're being fed, and turn them into fanatical supporters. And it seems to be working. Same thing with them constantly destroying other social safety nets, they want them too poor to be able to do anything as well. U/Upper Job 5130 responded. Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK from the window of the schoolbook depository, and he was the only shooter. He was not, however, the only one responsible. Oswald was obviously not right in the head, as it were. That made him the perfect person to manipulate into being the shooter. However, it also made him a liability after the shooting. Jack Ruby, on the other hand, was a known associate of the mob, and well acquainted with keeping his mouth shut. Ruby was tasked with silencing Oswald. U/Base 1012- responded. Governments and private corporations use genetic algorithms and machine learning to hone in on the most effective button-pushing language possible. Implemented in meme farms or advertisement, which are iterated over millions of times to find the most effective keywords to modify out behavior and thinking. And there is an information culture war being fought right now for the hearts and minds of the swarms of humans. The word that comes to mind is Namshub, an ancient Sumerian curse which was the focal point of the book Snow Crash, which deals with the concept of a digital, mimetic virus that turns people into religious babblers. While not as magical as portrayed in that book, I have yet to find a word more appropriate for the concept of programming humans. For example, QAnon is an evil fucking Namshub. U/Talkin responded. Green energy movements are run by big oil. Many people, companies, and governments keep pushing for wind and solar, but they never talk about nuclear. Why? Nuclear is the most sustainable and reliable form of energy. 1. Solar and wind use plenty of fossil fuel in their manufacturing. I heard somewhere that a wind turbine needs to function for 30 years before it pays of its manufacturing cost, though I have no source. 2. Both are unreliable. Wind turbines can only be used in places with plenty of wind, and solar panels only work when the sun is shining. What do you do in the areas and at the times where those are not making electricity? Fossil backup time. In conclusion, big oil pushes less reliable green energy solutions as a way of remaining relevant in the future, whereas nuclear would destroy a huge share of their profits. We should always have oil on hand. U/Stone Soldier responded. That currently USA is being fed misinformation by its enemies, so COVID kills them within. No country would ever go toe-to-toe with USA. So your best option is to feed them lies, have half the population believe it, and pretty much kill themselves. The economy will collapse if 3 to 5% of your population dies, and you'll have bigger things to worry about other than war. 710k Americans have died, more than any war you've ever been a part of. Russia is 210k, China is 9k. If you think China's numbers are fudged, well, this is our first pandemic, this is their 10th since LVE been alive. They are probably more experienced, and I don't see a Chinese Herman Cain Award group. Only an American one. India is getting hit hard, but still they are 3x America's population, and only have 1/3 the deaths. Do either India's healthcare is better than USA, or this misinformation is only being spread within Western nations. Which means someone's paying for it to be spread, and people are taking the money to kill their own. It's pretty messed up. U/deleted, responded. Netflix listens to me. Like actually listens. I read the description of the movie The Guilty. Description basically said that a cop who got demoted to dispatcher, blah blah blah. And being a dispatcher myself, went on a rant about how that's not a demotion. No cop in the service I work for could do my job, and they are the ones saying it. The next day I scroll past the movie and notice that the wording has been changed to a cop who's been assigned to dispatch. They heard me yelling at my TV and changed the wording. Creeped me out. U/Jumpman78 responded. Your phone is listening to you. Just 2 days ago I was talking about a specific product brand with someone. Later I was scrolling Reddit and found the exact same advertisement from the brand I really have never searched up before. My mom told me she has experienced similar things multiple times. There is also a YouTube video where someone tests this out. He talks about dog toys with Google Chrome closed, later goes on some sites and finds ads instantly. Here's the video. This is really dumb to me considering I feel more creeped out seeing the product making me least likely to even click the advertisement. U/Dingleberry_mustache responded. I believe there is already a cure for cancer, but it won't ever be widely available because the healthcare industry makes so much money off cancer treatments. My mom passed away in 2017 due to metastatic breast cancer. She was diagnosed, then promptly went through a double mastectomy and radiation. At one point, her doctors told her she was cancer-free. Then it came back with a vengeance and went metastatic. At the end, it was everywhere in her body. When all was said and done, her insurance was billed over $1 million. Fuck cancer, fuck health insurance companies, and fuck the hospital my mom died in. Edit. Words because I mixed something up. U/Freeman Calavera responded. Not sure if this classes as a conspiracy theory, more like strategy, but that the major US parties have issues they will never take big action on so that they can keep running on them. Like, Republicans will never outright repeal Roe v. Wade or ban abortion nationwide, because then you will lose single-issue voters who only care about banning it in future elections. Similarly, Democrats will never take sweeping, federal action on gun control, only make attempts at it that they know will get struck down. This way they can keep talking about how gun violence is an epidemic and how they will take action once they get into power. I'm not taking a stance on any of these issues to be clear, just saying that it's plausible. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Leave your own stories down below, I would love to read them. If you would like to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe, it helps me out greatly.